So if you're watching this video, number one, thank you. Number two, I am in California for TwitchCon, so as a result, I'm not going to be here for the next 5 days. But these next 5 days are going to be full of NBA predictions. We got this video, you got the Western Conference prediction, MVP prediction, Most Improved Player, Defensive Player of the Year, and then the top 5 players at each position going into the 2018 season. As for this video you're watching, I don't know who the two teams I'm playing with are. I just randomized and got 2 Eastern Conference teams, so for all I know, it's the Nets versus the Cavs right now. So anyway, Eastern Conference. Who are going to be the top 8 teams? Well, when we look at the teams that made the playoffs this previous season, the ones who are definitely out, Chicago with the loss of Jimmy Butler, Indiana with the loss of Paul George, Atlanta with the loss of Paul Millsap and Dwight Howard, if Dwight Howard was a positive for them. And then I think everybody else should still be in there, and then we have to have a couple other teams make it. So, the number 1 seed, I think I'm going to give this to the Boston Celtics, and this is going to be an example of a LeBron James-led regular season team not going 100%. When these two teams meet in the conference finals, if they do, I'm sure I'm going to pick the Cavaliers. Like, they have LeBron James, and if you got LeBron, then you got LeBron. And then the Cavs still making it to the finals, so there's just that one for you. For the 3rd seed, you know what? I'm going to go with the Wizards for a couple reasons. Number 1, they turned it on and then some to close out last season. Not even close out, it was maybe 20, 25 games in, they finally got their heads together, started playing defense. John Wall's leadership being a big reason for that one. And I think they're just going to win a few more games than the Raptors, man. I think the addition of Jody Meeks, I made a video on this one, I think he's going to help their second unit out a lot. I think acquiring Tim Frazier at the backup point guard position, he's a competent backup point who's actually a pretty decent playmaker. And I think they're just going to carry the intensity that they had towards the second half of last season into the beginning of this season. I'm also banking on Bradley Beal still being healthy. And I think John Wall is just going to do what he does, and they're going to get the 3 seed. Number 4, Toronto. Should be said, like this last season, Toronto won 51, the Wizards won 49. I'm basically saying you could just flip that one, and the Wizards will win like 1 or 2 more games than the Raptors. But for Toronto, I picture Kyle Lowry playing less minutes. He just has to at this point. He's played 37 minutes a game the past 2 years for them. And if your best player is playing less minutes, then that would typically mean to a couple of less wins. They've also made some changes. The departure of Corey Joseph, I think, is going to hurt him. Sure, they're asking, who is it, DeLon Wright, to be their new backup point guard? Even if he's okay, Corey Joseph was one of the best backup points in the league. You're also losing out on Patrick Patterson, who was great for you in the lineups that he played. So, just, a couple less wins for Toronto, but they're basically still the same team. Next up, I'm going with the Miami Heat for number 5. The run that they went on to close out last season was just insane. How many games under 500 were they to get to 41 wins? It was just nuts. And the pick-and-roll style basketball that they play with Dragic and Whiteside and a whole bunch of shooters around, and the relentless drive and kick style basketball that they have, whether it be Dragic driving in, or Dion Waiters driving in, or James Johnson, or Tyler Johnson, and then with all the shooters they have, Dragic can shoot, Johnson can attack on closeouts, Waiters can shoot. All the guys I just named can also shoot, but then there's Wayne Ellington, Josh Richardson, Rodney McGruder was playing defense, Justice Winslow, we're going to see how he gets acclimated to that whole thing. Miami's just got a whole lot of stuff going on. The reason I would put them number 5, though, is because I think the best player on the other teams is better than the best player on this team. Whether you feel that it's Dragic or Whiteside, there's just a level above the other guys. You're looking at Kyrie and Hayward, LeBron, Kyle Lowry, and then John Wall. Just a little level below, but still pretty good. Number 6, Milwaukee. Now, Giannis could become the 2nd or 3rd best player in the Eastern Conference this season, depending on how you feel about John Wall. But Milwaukee as a whole, it's going to be tough, man, just because, number one, Jabari being out means they're really going to be looking for that other big-time scorer, because Chris Middleton's nice, but he's more of like a 15, 16-point scorer. If Malcolm Brogdon makes an offensive jump, then he might get to about 15, 16 points. But they need Jabari. Like, Jabari was the guy next to Giannis who could put up 20-plus points a night and make them really tough to defend. Hopefully Jabari's ready, man, at some point, 2 significant lower body injuries, it's not fun, so good luck to him. Also, the center position is still kind of up in the air because I liked Thon Maker's rookie season for what he did as a defensive player, and his three-point shooting had some life. It's only his second year. I don't think we should crown the dude too quickly. I think people got ahead of themselves last season with Miles Turner, where they just penciled him in for being really good for the Pacers in his second season. Or was that this year? I don't remember. But, he was nice, but he still was in his second year. So I think the similar thing is going to be for Thon. And then you got Greg Monroe off the bench, who I think is going to be ultimately positive for them, but he's got some problems defensively, of course. Now, I should say this with Milwaukee, because you could make the counter of, well, yeah, but the Heat don't have a second big-time scorer, and Giannis is better than Dragic, so why would you not put Miami above them? Or why would you put Miami above them? I think the league has figured out how to go a Jason Kidd style of defense. A couple years back, they were the 4th best defensive team because they trapped the hell out of every pick and roll. They have decreased quite a bit on defense the past 2 seasons, and I think teams just know how to attack Jason Kidd's defense now. So, now if Jabari was there ready to go, maybe the offense would be good enough to make up for it, but I don't think it is. So who we got left? That was 6 teams. Now for the last 2 spots, we're looking at the Hornets, the Pistons, and then a few other teams, one of them being the 76ers. I think I'm going to put Charlotte in one of those spots, probably number 7. The Hornets were terrible when Cody Zeller was not playing last season. They were 3-17. When he was playing, they were on track to being a playoff team in the Eastern Conference because defensively it all just works. You got Batum, who has his enough moments defensively, even if he's inconsistent. MKG, who's awesome. Marvin Williams, who's good. And then Cody Zeller, who's one of the more underrated players in the league, especially on defense. And then you combine that with Steve Clifford's style, where they never give up offensive rebounds. They also never score in transition, but what are you going to do? And they just were super conservative, and it worked out until the Zeller injury. The Dwight Howard acquisition is interesting. Is Dwight going to buy in? Is Dwight going to be okay with not playing 34, 35 minutes a game or whatever? Is he going to be okay with the fact that Cody Zeller may end up being better than him this season? I don't know. I mean, sure, Dwight's a better rebounder than Cody, but I think Zeller is probably a better defensive player at this point. So we're just going to have to see what happens there, but I think they're going to have enough offensively. Kemba Walker is going to have to do almost everything, but I think their defense will be enough, and I want to see if MKG plays more power forward, because I think he could do some stuff at the 4 spot as a cutter. You put him at the 3, and his shooting just becomes the biggest problem in the world. So for the 8th spot, we're looking at the Detroit Pistons, the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, the biggest factor here is Joel Embiid. If Embiid can manage to play 55 to 60 games this year and be himself when he's in there, which he should be, then I think Philadelphia gets in there. Now, Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons are going to turn the ball over a million times because that's what rookies do when they have the ball in their hands. But because of how good they were when Embiid was in, they could just be so good defensively that it ends up they just get in there anyway. I don't know. I think the safe pick is the Pistons, but because of Reggie Jackson just not fitting in really well with them last season and the fact that they don't have a real stone cold option at the wing spots, like small forward Stanley Johnson is kind of going to have a tough time because he's not the best offensively. The power forward is John Lohr. His three-point shooting is going to have to be the big question. Are they going to have enough spacing? I mean, I like Tobias Harris at the 4, but then the 3 spot becomes a big question. I think the best option could be Stanley Johnson and Tobias together, because when those two were on the floor together last season, they were like +2 for their net rating whereas when Tobias Harris and John Lore were in the game, it was like plus 0.6, and they played basically the same amount of minutes. You could go with Anthony Tolliver, but he might not have enough offensive stuff. He's mainly just a spot shooter. He's not like super gifted on defense, but he knows how to play team defense well enough. You know what? I'll go with the Pistons. I was really close to going with Philadelphia, but I think Joel Embiid's health is enough of a risk for me to think they might get a few games out. The Pistons are full of veterans, whereas the Sixers are full of young players. Well, the young players are going to be doing the most. Fultz, Simmons, you get it. And I think the Pistons are just going to figure out enough of their forward stuff. I hope Andre Drummond stops posting up, because I was looking at a stat where Drummond last season averaged like 1.8 pick and rolls, but he averaged like 4 post-ups, which is completely backwards. Like, he has to post up never and screen and roll all the time, so hopefully they do that. So I'm going to go with the Pistons, number 8. I should talk about the Nets real quick. I mean, the perimeter stuff's good, like D'Angelo Russell, Jeremy Lin, Alan Crabb, Damari Carroll, if he can be something, Karis LeVert, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. There's a lot of interesting stuff here with this team. Ultimately, I think their big guys are just going to be too bad. Your options at center are Timofey Mozgov, who sucks, and Jared Allen, who's a rookie. And then you got Trevor Booker at the 4, who's not bad, but he doesn't really provide spacing or anything like that, so I don't think they're going to make it. So who are the 8 teams? Celtics, Cavs, Wizards, Raptors, Heat, Bucks, Charlotte, and Detroit, with Philadelphia just barely missing.